All right, it's 7 o'clock. Well, we're going to call the June 15th Standing Committee to order. Agenda items, administration, anything to add?
No, there isn't yet, Deputy Mayor.
Council? Then I need a motion. Councilor Spell?
I'll move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We will got no delegation today or public hearing. Before we go on to business of 5.1, I will mention that since last week was Seniors Week, today is actually World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. So that out there. So 5.1, bylaw 12-12-17, proposed utility bylaw update. Director Ware.
Thank you, Council. So administration has been reviewing this bylaw internally and has been working with the commission as well as new infrastructure services manager Laura to go through and review the bylaw for a third time. The majority of the changes that we brought forward for first reading still apply. We really included some legal verbiage and a number of section revisions, as well as of note, the new utility bylaw will require private landowners that previously had private services to connect to our utility infrastructure from the roadway within a year's time of the roadway services being made available. This is new, and we discussed this at previous meetings. The bylaw in its entirety has been reorganized and realigned to follow the sections of the administrative side of things that into potable water, wastewater, stormwater, and then the related utility connections, which is previous to those three sections. So what we're looking for tonight is that Standing Committee carry out an additional review of this bylaw, and then we'll bring this bylaw forward to council for further readings. We welcome any comments or questions that council has on this bylaw, and actually Laura's here tonight as well too, if there's something specific that council or the Standing Committee wants to look at. Also, with this new revision to the bylaw, we have changed Schedule A, which is the administrative costs, the work that we do for the utility rate providers. And then Schedule B has also been revised to align what we previously had, where we actually have the utility rates for each section as per the 2020 budget, named in there instead of just referencing the documentation of the 2020 budgets or future budgets. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Councilor Stinny?
I have just a couple things. The first one would be under Part 1, Title and Preamble. 2A, it says in this bylaw, the reference to the male gender shall include the female, seeing as we know that there's more gender pronouns than just he and she, they, for example. Should this not read that reference to the male gender shall include all genders, not just the female?
Sure, we can look at that, Councilor.
And then further, if I may as well, section, and I'm looking at the clean version, not the edited one, but I double checked and they are the same. 88 undermines 86 through the vague wording. 88 should clearly state that routes extending from an adjacent private property instead of just from private property. Otherwise, it sounds like it could be the person's property themselves, if that makes sense. The same thing is in 144 and 146 on the clean version, and 163 and 165 need the same language change in order to differentiate between the two.
So, Councilor, that was section 86 and 88 was the first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want me to repeat those? It's 86 and 88.
Yeah, no, I'm just reading the notes.
144 and 146, and 163 and 165. I just think that stronger verbiage needs to be used in order to identify between private property of an owner and adjacent private property or neighboring private property.
It sounds good. We'll review that.
Thank you.
Mayor Cool?
So I have a few points, and part of what I'm doing is just update yourself on how we're developing utility rates, how we're developing the whole process, and I think this is a good opportunity to do that. My first question is under the discussion of your preamble, or pardon me, under the discussion of your initial. When we say that this is to make sure that all businesses are affected or all properties are affected. How many properties are not currently joined to our system that we are going to have to force into joining? Or will all of these be new properties as we move forward and expand our boundaries?
Good question, Your Worship. So the only areas that I'm aware of would be the lots, the commercial lots that are serviced off of East Rail, southwest of the water reservoir. So that would be the Contempo Kitchens and the House property there, that trucking company, as well as I believe there's a concrete manufacturing or a concrete pumping truck site there, as well as the yard if it was ever to be developed, Blackfalds yard there. So water and sewer is not in the road right now. So as part of the, I believe it's 2022 project of doing the improvements along the East Rail for the new elementary school. That at that time we would put those services in, and then we would work with the adjacent landowners to come up with a way that they can move forward with those services once they were in place, similar to what we did over in the Duncan Avenue area. Other than that, there's some fringe areas, like I know ME Global recently connected to our water and wastewater, so that was one that was outstanding, and I believe that's it. You know, a couple of acreages, but they're obviously on the fringe areas, so we'll develop them accordingly.
Thank you. So my next question is on page 13 of the bylaw, page 15 of the PDF, and it's a requirement to use low flow plumbing fixtures. And my question there is, how will this be enforced, and do you anticipate that with the increase of low flow appliances, we will limit the ability of our wastewater system to flush appropriately?
Thank you, Worship, for that question. So 90% of the plumbing fixtures that are installed nowadays are low flow in some sort of shape or fashion. As far as the scouring components of the system, the services are still sized for 4 or 6 inch lines. So even with the introduction of low flow toilets and like a number of years ago, people just tend to use a little bit more water. It's based off of the cost of water, right? So overall, it doesn't affect the overall system or the overall system performance, but if you don't allow if you don't try to reach those maximum densities in those neighborhoods, then you might have a problem. Or if something was rezoned or a huge area was changed, you might have to look at those impacts. But something as simple as just planning for a large water user, in turn a large waste disposer would, help mitigate that concern. And we're actually quite a bit lower than what we should be per capita for water usage as it is. So. And we seem to be doing fine right now.
So I guess as a subsequent to that, different communities are initiating low flow sewer system, toilet systems as a way to conserve water. Is that something that you feel we should be recommending to our community and providing incentive to do so?
Your Worship, I don't know if an incentive would be justifiable at this point in the game. Like I said before, 95% of the toilets that are installed new are low flow, and I know that we only have about 10 or 20 blocks of areas that would have been built before then. That being said, I know we do have a policy that talks about wanting those low flow type of parameters and minimizing water use, but that would align with our water conservation plan or whatnot. But really, that's more of a program focus for older communities like Camrose or City of Macomb or something like that.
Thank you. My next question is on part 19, 16 of 71 on the PDF. And this is a generalized question for repair and maintenance of existing water services. When a stoppage occurs that is a result of the town lines either freezing or damage within the town system that causes a residential backup, what is the process that will be provided to the property owner for compensation?
Your worship, we would look at the bylaw and see which affected service it would apply to. So I know for a water service, if it's a frozen water service, we actually go in there, get permission from the landowner, and we'll actually go and flush out the frozen water service with hot water, unless it was determined through our investigation that it was an error on their behalf. But 95% of the time we go in there and flush those because the service is actually quite a bit shallower than what our new requirements are. And then I guess further, if it was sanitary, we asked them to do a camera inspection through their existing clean out of their house out to the service lead, and then depending on whether it's our fault, their fault, or a combination of the two, we would allocate those costs accordingly.
We work very cooperatively with the homeowner to make sure that we're being very fair about how costs are being assigned.
Yeah, exactly, but it's definitely a balancing act between paying for things that are obviously a homeowner's liability versus what our liability is. So yes, we have a pretty robust route program, as well as a lot of our service lines have been reconditioned or replaced.
Question. Or do you want to go to? Why don't you go to somebody else and come back to me?
I can wait.
I'll wait. Councilor Cal, and then Stendy, and then we'll come back here.
Thank you. So Director Warren, my question is just somewhat to the point of the mayor's question. I just wanted to confirm. So as far as you're aware, this won't be affecting any residential homeowners as soon as it's implemented, except for a few acreages?
That's correct. And actually, when we purchased one of the houses off of Broadway, we found out there was an old water well there, so we'll have to remove that. So that was an interesting piece of information that we didn't have before. But yes, we've got a record of all the water utility users and all the wastewater utility users. There's a different code in our system, and yeah, to my best understanding, it's only the commercial or empty lots that would apply to.
So then when we were to, or when we are to annex new properties with residential homes, I'll know that's when this would come into effect.
Or acreages or whatnot, right? Other than that area that I talked about before along East Rail. I know we just finished the offsite levies, or the local improvement bylaw for South Street West. That was the other major area, and then before that it was Duncan Avenue that was taken over by the county. And then of course the whole area in front of the All-Star Park was annexed as well to get the Vista Trail and South Street work to service that whole area back in 2010.
Councilor Stendy?
So I have a question in regards to page 26. Under auto requested meter reading, and meter testing in-house is coming up as $50 charge. I'm curious as to why we're charging for this service. I feel that residents should have the right to have their meter tested at once without a fee if they feel it's out. We should be charging for a second or third, etc., if they're continuing to request. But I think, especially if the meter's been found to be out, we should not be charging them $50 for in-house meter reader testing.
Yeah, so thanks for that question, Councilor Cindy. This rarely occurs, but that being said, we could look at lowering or removing that cost. But we don't do any meter testing in-house unless it's a meter troubleshooting, and that we don't charge for. 90%, well, actually 100% of the time that I've seen in the last 10 years, we test the meter and it's either accurate or it's under reading, which is a benefit for the utility user, right? So I'd be happy to change that. It's just always been that. I think it was just one of those things where we wanted to make sure that we weren't, having to have all those costs come out of the utility rates for everybody else, right? So it's definitely up for debate.
City Thompson?
I think I like the idea of the first time being at no charge, but you could have a resident requesting multiple readings over the course of a short span of time that, could really impact the functions of our group. So I think there should be a charge left, but definitely the first one I would say at no cost would be be a good compromise.
Mayor Poole?
Just a question on that. What is the cost for a first calibration, for example, for testing? And if it's within the required amount, do you think that it should be our responsibility, or should it be the responsibility of the homeowner if we are doing everything right? Should the cost?
I guess I'm not sure it's a precedent. Have we outsourced over the last 5, 6, 7 years water meters, or have we just kind of replaced it out, that meter with another one, or?
So what we'll do is we'll make an appointment and we'll come out and we'll replace the meter with a temporary meter or a new meter. And then we'll go and send that out for testing. But yeah, I've been here for 10 years and I know of 2 cases where we actually did that. Usually when the utility clerk outlines the bills, it provides all the trending of what has been happening. The homeowner finds a leak or finds some sort of unauthorized water usage that they didn't know existed.
So it's rare to be here. So when we have taken them out for testing, do you know what the cost normally is at all?
Well, we're really not, even just to have a public works operator come there, have an appointment and, bring back the meter, you're looking at, $35 an hour or whatnot. It usually is, an hour or 2 by the time you go through all the appointments and everything. We do define what the cost would be in the water meter section. I was just trying to find it here. Oh, so it does say that, I don't know what section it is. It does say they have the ability to test it, and then if it comes back to being the cost of the town, then we pay for it. But if it comes back to being a perfectly fine meter, then the homeowner pays for it at $50.
That's under point F in section 24.
So
107, I should say.
107.
Pardon me, 111 part F.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the other part of that too is that we're also looking at if the meter is inaccurate, we're also refunding them, a 12-month variance on that. So it's just trying to recover a bit of those costs, right? I know just to have that meter delivered to someplace in Red Deer or Calgary, we're looking at a lot like $50.
Did that cover everything, Mr. Stibbe?
So,
Okay, Mayor Poole?
So I'll go to page 28 of the PDF, and it's under Schedule A, meter installation cost. One of the goals of our bylaw utilities is to break even and not experience a loss and not experience surplus from it. So when we put the plus 25% on all of these installation costs, basically for all of these costs, is that enough to actually cover? Or does it balance off? Some are over, some are under, but 25% basically covers it off?
It's definitely a good practice to try to cover the majority of those costs. So yes, to answer your question, it would cover it. But you're right, some of them are going to be under, some of them are going to be over. I'd say it's probably closer to 20% if it was an ideal situation, and probably closer to 35% if it was, one where they're called back multiple times. I know we do go a bit above and beyond when it comes to things like servicing a residence and things like that, contrary to the bylaw sometimes.
That's good to hear. One last,
Subsequent? Or another one?
just one last one.
Okay.
Thank you. So this goes on to page 29 of 71, the wastewater rates. One question that I've gotten multiple times, and this is over the years, not this year or today or anything like that, over the number of years, is that why don't we have wastewater meters? Because right now we're taking 2/3, 80%, thank you very much, Councilor Sandy, 80% of the usage of the water we're putting into, and we're calling it wastewater. A lot of people, when it comes to summer season, when you're watering your lawn, when you're doing all of these things that don't actually include water going back into the wastewater system, suggest to us that it's really not a fair rate to have the 80% when, in fact, they don't feel that much water goes back into the wastewater system.
Yeah, Your Worship, thanks for the excellent question. So we've struggled with this since we brought on the regional sewer rates. So it's a good rule that, the majority of the potable water that's metered at the residential or commercial unit over the course of a year, so that includes the winter months, of course, a good average is between 80 to 90% of potable water used is, returned to the wastewater. Our water usage rates versus our wastewater disposal rates, also align with those 80%. I guess further to that, if we were going to go and put a separate wastewater meter for all the 45 residents of town at $400 a meter, that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.8 million, and that wouldn't even, we wouldn't even be talking about the maintenance of those meters as well too. So it's an easy way for all the municipalities that are already metered. 90% of Alberta municipalities are metered with water meters nowadays. So it's an easy way to do that math and capture a really good idea of what the wastewater discharge rate is per household.
Thank you. And I guess just final comments. Our goal for our utilities, and there's been some comments lately about the increased rates and the different things. People, even though we know we haven't increased it, we have a new water bill look, so people are wondering about that. Our goal is to have our water utility rates self-sustaining and not taking off the tax rate, but we're not putting money back from our utility into our general coffer. Is that a correct summation?
Yes, Your Worship. So those water and wastewater rates also account for a portion of those dollars to go back into reserves to fund those future replacements of the water reservoir and things like that. So it's a good policy for tangible capital assets to allocate a portion of that utility cost to allow for those future utility ratepayers to have some money set aside for those repairs in the future. Further to that, our utility rates are very comparable as we went through with the exercise when we first joined on the wastewater with Sylvan, City of Lacombe, Olds, a lot of these, small to medium communities. And with us getting that water and wastewater service from the city of Red Deer, it's been getting a lot of liability and environmental concerns that we've obviously been facing about that treatment.
Thank you.
Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to just the testing of the water meter. When I first moved here, that was my first go around with the town. What first I did is I measured off 1 gallon and I tested against the meter, which is a really good exercise. It showed that my 1 gallon was representative to what the meter was reading. And then I had the foreman of the town, who's no longer working here, come over and smoking cigarette, walked into my house, and I asked him the question. So if you're going to be picking my brain, I'll be out leaving here right now. So we ran off 100 gallons of water and tested, and the meter was right. The mistake at that time was my meter downstairs and my meter outside the house, they had different numbers. So I just moved into my house. I had 3 feet of weeds. I've never watered, didn't even have a washing machine yet. And the mistake was the 6,000 difference from that outside meter to the other. So mistakes can happen. But I'm just saying, for a good test to anybody, I know that just running a gallon off will let you know if you're within 99% of your water accuracy. You don't have to go through taking the meters off and that, or you could go to the next step, right? Just as a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councilor Taylor. I guess further to that, some questions have been arising about the meter read on each individual resident's bills versus the actual consumption of cubic meters that are allocated on there. Now, sometimes those reads are not just in a gallon, it could be in 0.1 of a gallon, so the multiplier needs to be correct, and you need to know whether or not your meter's in gallons or in cubic meters to make that conversion. So the best bet for any residents or businesses, if they are having concerns or complaints, if you did, is to call in the town. We're more than welcome to go out there and explain it to them, and also provide them information as to whether your meter is in metric or imperial.
Just going on that a little bit further, the other thing is reading consistently. You can't. One of the other problems we had in the past is the meters would be read on the 3rd week, and then it's the 4th week. And what was the difference? Well, the difference is before we were penalized for being over water, and you're not getting that accuracy. We need to be consistent in the time that we're reading. You can't be 2 weeks out and and showing that we need to perform accuracy in meter reading, I suppose. And just one more thing. Just going back on that watering, so I wasn't too clear, and I want to bring that up. There is no allowance, or the allowance is in the 80% for the watering in the overall consumption. So you've averaged it out for a year. I'm just saying is because people water. I know people will water over the summer, and you leave it on. My kids come, they'll come to my yard and put my water on. So there is no. Is it in the allowance of the 80%, or we just don't give them for watering in the summer?
Yeah, so it would be built into the 20% of water that you're not being charged over the 1.5 summer months that we have.
Right. Yeah. I had one more, but I can't remember it.
Councilor Hoover.
I have a couple questions. Part 33 regarding grease, oil, and solid interception and wastewater. So I'm assuming that we're capturing specifying restaurants, laundries, hotels. We're capturing that during the development permit or business licensing process. How are we capturing other businesses such as just NBC just approved home-based major. It's a food service. So how are we ensuring that do we have a tolerance for how much we anticipate grease going down the drain before we require a trap?
So yeah, thank you, Councilor Hoover. So yes, in regards to grease, we don't really have a solid method of tracking that, but we do through the plumbing permitting process, through the building permit. We would require them to follow the building code, which would outline, the grease traps and the like, and what sort of grit separation you need in there. But as far as finding out where that came from, if we had a problem, we would do systematic checks over an area and isolate where it was coming from. And then we might even do something as serious as knocking on doors to find that one location. But we also practice some educational programs along, don't dump your grease down the toilet, and things with the rags and whatnot to try to mitigate those problems with the wastewater. Grease is a big concern. We also dump anti-degreasers down a lot of our lift stations, which helps with that. But Overall, it's based off of the new buildings are going through the plumbing code. In the old areas, if they're being retrofit, of course, they're going through the plumbing code. And then it's just a matter of looking for those outliers.
So just want to be clear, so we know that restaurants, hotels are gonna require this, it's automatically gonna be an assumption, I'm just wondering, like, is during that plumbing code, it doesn't say per se, this is gonna be a home-based business? Are we, when they apply for these types, now applying a process that's ensuring that this is?
So my understanding for the home-based business is that she would also have to go through a changeover to her kitchen and whatnot, some other kitchen appliances in the proper commercial way and whatnot. And at that time, if there's a plumbing code, if there was plumbing change, they would have to go through the proper plumbing code.
I just want to make sure that we do have a process in place, because I do know that, especially in the smaller lines, it's very problematic greases. And it's difficult to get residents to comply, let alone somebody that's running a catering service out of their home that's gonna increase that. My second question is regarding the maintenance. We don't specify maintenance cycle for any of these businesses, so it's just very, very general saying maintenance required, but I know in other jurisdictions, they require a certain cycle when these things are clean, not just overall maintenance. So do we have a plan in place, or do we have other policies in place that are getting that, especially as we grow our commercial base and likely food services?
Specifically to grease alone, no. But some of the unauthorized type of materials on the back end, like in Schedule D, do talk about that. But really, it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a function of the business. If they're not cleaning up their grease trap, they're going to have problems with their sewer connection, and then they're going to be responsible to figure out what the problem is through cammering, and then obviously we would see that problem through the grease deposits and whatnot. I know that's not in the practice, so it's more of a reactive approach than a proactive approach.
And just comment something, because I have experienced this where there's an area that has a large amount of food service in it, and there's a clog downstream. It's very difficult to then determine what's caused, and it falls on the municipality to deal with that once there's several businesses that have wastewater backing up. So as far as I'm concerned, we should be looking at some specified cycles for different fruit.
Yeah,
The health permit, the food service permit requires the hood ranges to be cleaned, in a frequency that's adequate. I don't see any reason why we couldn't specify that for grease traps, since it's kind of a no factor.
Yeah, and I guess Councillor Hoover, it would be a matter of who would be, regulating that approach, and how would we know which areas need to be, serviced and when. It's going to depend on how much, that food service is going to be using the grease. So we basically just put all that onus on the private landowner to clean their services out, and then we also clean and flush the main line out. So we will see, grease deposits and whatnot, and it becomes a huge problem. I know the one time we had somebody washing again, this was sewer, or this was storm and not wastewater, the same thing applied. We had somebody washing their SUV in their garage, and they had an unauthorized connection into the storm, and so we removed that too, right? So it just comes through our regular maintenance and responsibilities that we do. So I don't know how we would have that in this bylaw. Frankly, a lot of other bylaws, the responsibility ends in the property for those services.
Councillor Stoney.
So this is my final one, I promise. Page 27, I'm looking at the consumption rates for water versus wastewater for those rates. Something that I've heard from residents is when they call with a complaint about their wastewater and are told that it is 80% of their water rate, they go back and they try to figure out the math on 80% of their water. But because our consumption rates between water and wastewater are different, those numbers are different, Is there a way that we could explain that a little bit better to our residents when they phone with a complaint? Or perhaps when it's budget time, we could look at making those adjustments so those numbers are the same and it actually is 80%?
Yeah, and I think, sorry, Councilor Sandy. So I think that the majority of the confusion came from the meter, or the water meter changes. So we used to have our base rate, which is 1706 fixed rate, as a number, and then we added on the consumption onto that. So now that we broke that out, it's very simple to do. So basically you take the consumption, so say it's 25 cubes of water, you know, that's the number there, you times it by 80%, so you're down to 20 cubes, and you times that by $3. The math should work out very, very close, other than a small rounding error. And the rounding error is in favor of the utility rate person. So again, our utility clerk has been awesome in with all these. I know she had a number of complaints, and they were around 100 when we made this changeover. And I think really it's just a matter of adjusting people's thinking as to how it was before. I know at one time we did have 3 or 4 different snapshots and scenarios on our website on how to read your meter, and that really helped, but it almost just provided more confusion than just calling in and asking a question. We're very transparent with our water meters, and you know, all that trending is available for anybody.
Councilor Taylor.
Remembered my question. Do we still sell rain barrels?
Yes, we do, Councilor Taylor. So it's actually on our website. Laura actually worked with Public Works to develop a delivery type of model. So we originally were just, you know, having people pay them here and then picking them up. But now we actually, with the pandemic, we have been delivering them. So rain barrels are $50, or no, composters are $50 and rain barrels are $75. And that's actually below our new costs. So.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other questions, so I need a motion. Mayor Poole.
I move the council accept the recommendation of administration to get rid of the right bylaw. Like me, I was looking at the one we were looking at last week. I move that the Standing Committee of Council recommend that bylaw 1212/17 being the utility bylaw as amended be brought forward to council for second reading.
Any debate on the motion? All those in favor? It's carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Next, we have 6.1 Audit Service RFP. Director Presser.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. Before you do have the audit service RFP, as you're aware, 2019 audit financial year is coming to a close on June 23rd. This is the last year of the contract for RSM, which got employed in 2015, and then we had a 3-year contract term with extensions of 2 more years. Before you, we're just getting your feedback on this RFP before it does go out. We're changing the term from a 3-year to a 5-year contract. We feel that having a 5-year term with the auditors produces better results in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th year. They become more familiar with the operations of the town, the processes, procedures, and they can actually test a little bit differently in those other years. One limitation of having new auditors every 3 years is that training, and our utility staff and property taxes and the finance manager is in the position of training those junior accountants and whatnot. So upon the recommendation or the endorsement from the committee here, we'll be releasing the RFP on July 3rd, running for 3 weeks, with the recommendation that the admin decision coming back on August 11th. Tonight's administration recommendation is that the standing committee of council move to recommend that administration release the audit services RFP in Alberta Purchasing Connect and the town's website. And with that, I'll open up with any questions.
Councillor Stiddy?
Just a couple of comments on page 3. The population is mentioned several times. It's redundant. We don't need to have that mentioned quite as many times as it is. And then as well, under the definitions, for must, mandatory, required, it says a requirement that must be met in substantially unaltered form. It should be 2 separate words, in substantially, otherwise it means that it's okay to alter the form.
Councillor Taylor?
Well, in the past, we've almost always extended the contract to 5 years. But my question is what happens if we get in a relationship with somebody and we have to do it for 5 years instead of 3? Why would we not want to just continue what we've done, just knowing that typically the town has, I mean, we can share that information, is typically if the relationship has been good, there's an incentive for them to get those extra 2 years. If all of a sudden they don't, you don't know what that relationship is be. They could be maybe a little bit more complacent. I just question that.
Yeah, thank you for that question. In my experience on putting out an RFP for 5 years, it's generally pricing. Some contracts come back with no inflation factor. So we're locking in those the 4th year, 5th year at current year's rates. Some RFPs come back with the inflation factor. For those, they'll bid for 2020 with a 3% inflation factor over the next 5 years. Schedule 17 there is a termination clause. And it reads here by either the municipality or the agency for any reason whatsoever upon 90 days of notice to the other party. So if things are definitely going south and we don't feel that they're confident enough, whatever reason, we've got that 90-day clause as well. And that can be back to us as well. The agency can give us 90 days notice and then we'll go out for our services again.
Mayor Poole?
Thank you. So at the end of the last part of your RFP includes the library and the inclusion of the library under the reconciliation of the statements. So will this mean that the library has any extra duties to perform different types of audits utilizing the company that the town employees, or because right now, from my understanding from our board members, is that they have a 3-year read audit and then a 1 year where they use the company where they bid it out.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So yeah, definitely, it is stated in there that because the public library is dependent on the town, there's that interrelationship. And in the past years, definitely they have to be integrated into the town's books. That doesn't mean that the library has to go with the audit services that the council will choose on the 11th. They are still independent. They still have their reviews and whatnot. Just once those reviews done, our auditors will grab that financial information and present it on the town's books.
And they won't have to reconcile it, or they're not expected to do anything but take it and present it. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Any other questions? And I need a motion. Councillor Stiddy?
I will move that Standing Committee of Council move to recommend that administration release the audit services RFP on Alberta Purchasing Connect and the town's website.
Any debate on the motion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Director. We're now 6.2, website update, All-Net Municipal Solutions. CEO.
Thank you, Committee. I'm presenting this for marketing communications. So we've been looking at updating our website. Currently, Previously, we had a website provided through Joomla, which was a free and open source content management system. Back in 2016, we moved over to Fox Clever's web guide, CMS, which we are currently utilizing now. Working with web guide and account administrators, and I'm sure council has realized some shortcomings and challenges that we have with our current system. Some of the limitations include the inability to add inline frame elements required by third-party apps such as Fix and the Blackfalds Business and Investment Intelligence tool. Basic processes such as uploading files, placement of graphics, expandable, collapsible text are also limited or unavailable. And even though we've requested numerous feature updates, they can't be provided. As with any computer software or hardware, the requirement to upgrade every 3 years is necessary. In order to update the website for the current website provider's annual contract renews in September of this year, Marketing Communications started the process of searching for another web hosting service and CMS in December of last year. They identified 3 priorities to determine the next company to develop the town's website and launch in the fall of this year to align with the town's brand project timelines. These include excellent web development, customer support and service, user-friendly CMS to entry-level web users, and the ability to add programming code for intermediate to advanced users such as JavaScript, customizable online forms, and other interactive elements. Also, look for easy integration of third-party apps such as Fix, the Blackfalds Business Investment Intelligence tool, online payments, and emergency alerts. Marketing Communications staff researched various service providers, and through that process, we concluded that AllNet Municipal Solutions meet all the requirements and offer other products that can be easily integrated with AllNet CMS. One advantage of using AllNet is that the organization develops their products exclusively for the municipal sector, which we feel is very important. We've signed a 4-year contract for AllNet inclusive website package at a cost of about $7,000 annually, and includes all the features contained in the starter package, as well as, but not limited to, unlimited calendars, event submissions from the general public, online poll questions, Google mapping service requests, alert pop-up notifications and emergency messaging, microsites, business directory, and much more. These solutions all correlate with the town's municipal sustainability plan, specifically the leadership and engagement pillar, which specifies collaboration with citizens to enable self-sufficiency and bring and the forward-thinking and innovative approach to service delivery. AllNet provides short demonstration of their CMS and other applications to the town managers and directors this past January. In all, the response to the system was positive, and further discussions on additional features, including AllNet Connect, a broadcasting service that manages and disseminates messages to all residents via email, smartphone apps, text messages, social media, and voice phone lines through one central portal. Connect also automatically broadcasts alert-ready emergency messages to residents' smartphones. This service won 2 awards in 2019 and was cited in the Minister's Award for Municipal Excellence Outstanding Achievement in the province of Alberta. AllNet Service Tracker is service request tracking and management system that could be an alternate to Fix, and offers web integration and accepts online submissions for any non-emergency issues with additional features such as GIS mapping, custom reporting, and council and board accounts. Marketing Communications was provided additional AllNet CMS demonstration, reviewed numerous AllNet municipal websites, and noted several features not currently provided by or with limited functionality in our current CMS. Sites are highly responsive and adjust to any screen size when viewing or editing. Super administrators can restrict user access to any web page. For example, department staff can only update their department's web pages. Ability to search engine optimization, meta words to pages such as garbage, recycling, and collection on the waste and recycling page. File administration is similar to MS Windows Explorer, similar file management systems, and therefore easier and instinctive to use, and users can manage them in one area. And the system is also updates documents automatically when new ones are uploaded. Built-in HTML code editor for advanced users with the ability to add and embed code. Business directory is an option included in the all-inclusive package. A $5,000 extra cost for web guide. Uses dynamic breadcrumbs for ease of navigation as optional. Accessibility features to decrease font size. Includes a pop-up alert feature that shows automatically on every page of the website as a banner, pop-up window, or both. The open slide shows it accepts images and video on the home slider. The I'd like to features a customizable drop-down menu without navigating away from the home page. An option to toggle between news and events calendar tabs, plus the option to create multiple calendars, including the ability for the public to add events. News notices can be categorized graphically, i.e. public notice, press release, public open house, etc. And news contains a pin to top feature and allows up to 3 notices to be pinned. So that's a snapshot of the features that gives AllNet the advantage over other website companies. We provided a cost comparison to our existing systems. And here's a bundling discount as well. We are looking for input from council on this. We just right now just looking at options and starting to investigate further what we'd like to see on our website. We hope to have some workshops and include council in that, getting your input. We're also interested in having AllNet provide a demonstration or presentation to council as well, to give you a little bit more of an idea. The purpose of bringing this report tonight was just to show some of the options that are available and improvements to our webpage, which is sadly needed. Other than that, we're just looking for council to accept this report as information at this time.
Any questions? Councilor Taylor?
I'm glad that you brought this forward because I've been on our website a few times and I find it difficult to flow back and forth, and I see things that we could be doing better. So I'm glad that this discussion has come forward.
Mayor Poole?
Concur, I'm glad that this has come forward. I'm a little curious and as to why it came forward in this order. The decision to utilize a firm, and it looks like a wonderful firm, and I hope it'll meet all the requirements and all the things that we are set out to do without the question as to the different companies and whether or not we felt that they could do all these things. The demonstration possibly before we decided to move with them. Having said that, I'm glad to hear that you are going to be giving council the opportunity. We go through web pages regularly from other councils, from other places, and I think that all of us have a really good understanding about what we want to see on there, and I hope that you'll be able to utilize the skills, the collective skills of this council to assist EDCOM in putting forward a product that will sell our town to the degree that it needs to be sold. I agree that we need to upgrade ours, and the web page is possibly the first and the best contact, and we want to make it an outstanding.
Yeah, we look forward to sharing that with council.
Councilor Bell?
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is great that we're looking at it, and I think the abilities to integrate things like our current C-Quick fix or potentially adjust that a little bit, as well as the alert system that we've looked into otherwise, if it can all be incorporated into one place for one cost, I think that's great. So I am prepared to make the motion that standing committee accept this information.
All right, accepted. I now have a motion. Any debate? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. So So now we're on 6.3, town facility disposition.
Thank you. So recent changes in our town on facility requirements have come both through last year's acquisition of the operations center on Duncan Avenue, as well as the development of the multiplex expansion project. And right now we're in the point where we're looking for some preliminary input from the standing committee of council, so as to determine a course of action relative to some of these facilities. What we're looking at is 3 town-owned facilities that have or will cease meeting the need of the current town operations. So these include the former Parks Facility Shop located on the corner of Broadway Avenue and Waghorn, the Parks Facility Storage Building located immediately west of the Mobile Home Park on Drake Street, and the FCSS building located on the Civic Center site here. The Parks Facility Shop is the operations of the Parks Facilities Division has transferred to the Operations Center, leaving this building vacant. As everyone is aware, it's a metal structure that was formerly the fire hall. It's approximately 20 meters by 27 meters, so I think 65 feet by 100 feet. It has 400 square meters of shop area, accessed by 3 overhead doors. There is a main floor office space area of about 140 square meters, as well as a second level that's about the same size. That's really meant for storage. Preliminary discussions have included the removal of this building from its location and have the site utilized for parking. It would provide about approximately 60 parking stalls and would support needed parking for the multiplex. There are other options that could include utilization for other purposes, either by the town or for other organizations, or offered for sale to the private sector. If the direction of the standing committee is to look at having the building removed and repurposed elsewhere, this action would take place through a request for proposal process, where the building would be offered for sale, and that would require the dismantling and removal of the site and reestablish somewhere else. If this was the direction, then that would take place in the latter part of the year, possibly in the spring of 2021. And if the direction of the standing committee is to have the building remain on the site, further investigation would be needed to determine options for its continued utilization in that location. The Parks Facility Storage Building is approximately 30 meters by 12 meters, and it's a metal building situated on 0.32 hectares of town-owned land. A portion of this land area will be utilized for the Drake Street realignment, as council is aware, and it would require the removal of that metal structure. That structure was erected in 1974, so it's been around for quite some time. I don't imagine that it could be dismantled and removed, although I might stand corrected, but it would have to be removed from the site, preferably this year. The use of the remaining portion of the land will be reviewed further for options and brought back to council at a later date. The FCSS building, that was included in Civic Facility Development Strategy and Master Plan that's completed in 2018. It found that that facility is in sound structural condition. It has served as a town hall previously, and it was constructed in 1980. Upon completion of the library space in the multiplex expansion, current library operations that are currently in our lower level civic center will transition over that library space, vacating the space downstairs. And we would foresee that the FCSS functions would move down into that space. That additional space is needed for improved communication and collaboration with the corporate and community social functions delivered from one facility, and we would also see improvements from a confidentiality perspective. Several options for consideration for the existing FCSS building. One option would be to have the structure demolished and the area transformed into expanded parking area. We have determined in the past that there's a lack of parking during daytime hours on this site. However, some of that will be alleviated with the library moving over to multiplex. Another option is to have the structure remain and have it utilized by existing and possible additional social service providers, partners. Also, the local food bank have indicated interest in use of the building as they have outgrown their existing facility. Plus, it would increase their capacity to provide additional related opportunities other than that of storage of food. The FCSS building has, thanks to Dow's financial support, a community garden that's on the site, and as well as having that building continue for the food bank could offer some other programming that could run out of that building. If it was to be reutilized for some other function, would quite likely need some, require some renovations. What those are at this time is unknown. So we will be seeking input from committee to assist in the development process and moving forward on further activities and actions, and looking forward to the additional information and sharing from the committee. As far as financial implications, further detail relative to financial implications will be forthcoming upon development for further planning and course of actions that we take. Take any additional questions?
Councilor Cindy?
I would just like to say that I'm 100% in favor of the FCSS building becoming home to a new food bank location. I have been in the current location volunteering throughout the pandemic, and besides the obvious need for more space, there's inadequate safety measures at the current location when serving residents. With only one entry exit in the current location, we cannot guarantee safety for staff and volunteers. The extra space and safety that the FCSS building could provide to the food bank would be invaluable to our community, not to mention all of the extra additional services that they could provide.
Mayor Poole?
Thank you. Just further on the FCSS building, with the renovation of that, if we were to go ahead with it to become a food bank, they have indicated that they are prepared to undertake the renovations that would be required if they were to take over that building. So from a financial point of view, that would be a minimal type of expense for us. So I think that's very important to consider when we're looking at this. As far as the other two buildings go, I guess my question is that we don't know the cost of, first of all, moving that parks equipment area. I guess the old operational went over on Grade Street. I was there in '95 when it was part of the existing manufactured home park, and it's old, and I don't think we can repurpose it for anything at all. But regarding that structure directly to the west of us, I'm wondering, we have no idea what the cost of refurbishing it, moving it would be. We really haven't done a good study of other town facilities, and there are a number of them that come to mind, a youth hall, different ones that we've never really considered. And I'm wondering, with regards to that, and with the new emphasis on the circular economy where you reutilize facilities rather than eliminate them, it might not be advisable for us to find a way to investigate that a little bit more clearly before we come to a recommendation. Maybe have members of council in coordination with administration go to that building, go upstairs, look at the different parts, and talk with different groups within the town, Boys and Girls Club. There's a whole raft of groups within our community before we make that decision and do it cooperatively.
Definitely. I mean, we've had some preliminary discussions with administration. We've had some discussion with council in the past. The location of the building is one of the factors. It's in a predominant location. It did serve as a fire hall. We've had discussions in the past, about attracting ambulance service and things like that. It is an energy efficient building because of the shop area type thing, heating a large volume of space. There is some infrastructure issues. We do have the water service leaks. I mean, right now it's shut off, but the last number of months that we were utilizing the building, there is so there have to be repairs there. If the decision was to put it out for RFPs, we would envision that we would bring some revenue in. Like, the building wouldn't be given away, somebody would pay for the building and look after the moving and everything. That's the expectation, we might be wrong. But definitely we can look at further options for the building, whether it be for municipal operations or other. Definitely, there's all sorts of considerations that could be had on that.
Sounds good.
That's good.
Thank you. I guess from my perspective, it's just a question as to, okay, how much will it cost to move it or to demolish it, or can we move it away? How much would it cost to keep it and upgrade it to a usable building? Is it possible to take the open space out and just have the reading space upstairs and down, to refurbish that type of thing? All of those options, we have no idea what is possible because we've never really had a good consideration. And I would hope that we could do that internally without having a lot of extra costs involved from the staff that we have within our town. But to me, before we make a decision, I'd like to have those numbers and those facts in front of me so that we can make a considered decision rather than just tear it down and make it into a parking lot.
Definitely, we can do that. The reason we thought we would go for request for proposals to see what interest there is in the building, where we wouldn't have to be in a position to follow through with the sale of that building. But we had envisioned that the building would bring approximately $30,000 to $40,000 as the sale of that asset. Actually, reducing the size of the building and just having the office space and the second floor and leaving it on that site and kind of restricting the parking opportunities. That might not be the best use of that parcel, but we could definitely look at all those and bring that back further. The purpose of bringing this tonight is to get council kind of thinking a little bit about it, and so that we can be in a position to start moving forward on some of these decisions.
Councilor Hoover.
Yeah, a couple of questions. FCSS, on your discussion, you don't indicate the size of that current building. What is the size of the building? How does that compare to the current food bank square footage or size?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, that was something that we didn't include. We can definitely get that information and bring that back next time we bring this forward.
Okay, and then my second question is with regards to the Parks and Facilities shop. It's been touched on before, but just so I'm crystal clear on this, if we were to leave that building in place, how is that going to impact the parking for the multiplex expansion? Because I thought that was factored into that. So is that going to reduce the parking available for that overall project? Is it even considered in that? I think it is, but please clarify what if we were to repurpose that building for something other than a parking.
Thank you. Yes, we did tabulate 60 parking stalls from that site in the overall parking scheme.
So just in other words, if we repurpose that, that's going to have another fairly major impact in terms of how many spots we have available.
Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, I concur with the line of questioning that we've had so far. First of all, I don't know what the timeline is. Like, where's the pressures? To me, immediately the pressure is the old building we have beside the manufactured home park. And that we could sell off or have somebody come and take it for salvage. We don't have to put any cost into it. If it can be repurposed, somebody might make it. It wouldn't be our problem. So to me, that's an easy one to go away, and it fits within the immediate construction or the phasing of what we're doing immediately. The fire hall, the past fire hall, whatever we want to call it, I don't know that we have to do anything right now. I do agree that that building could be better used in a different location. So I don't know if it would be cost effective to create a community hall and make it so we don't have all these doors and make it in a situation where we might find a solution for a lower cost rent place for Girl Guides and Scouts and stuff like that, if we had that. But, to do that, it would take probably a 3-year plan to accomplish something like that. It's, and I don't know the assessments of where we have to go, how soon. I know if we're just paying for a building and nobody's using it, doesn't make sense either. So it's about prioritizing timeline options. I don't have, it's easy to make a decision when somebody says, it's going to cost $1 million to move your building. It's just like, well, we're not doing that. But when you have some estimates and realistic, I know that building is bolted together, and I think it could be moved, and it would be an idea that we could. The metal structure, I worked in a cabinet shop, and it was no different than that. They insulated the walls, and it was energy efficient. So you can achieve efficiency and get different use out of it. And if with the mezzanine, there would be maybe purpose for storage. All that could serve a purpose. I just don't know if it financially is a viable option.
Well, we've even talked about moving it out to the operations center on that parcel of land, looking at running the services to it, putting a slab in, and the labor intensity in dismantling that building. It's very labor intensive. You're doing the opposite of putting it together. Looking at that versus a new building, I don't know what the cost variables would be, but that would take more research. The reason we're bringing it forward now, because those things take time. If council committee's direction was going for RFPs, you're looking at having it out for a month and then getting somebody in, and by that time you're looking at late fall if that building was to be removed possibly, right? So that's why we're bringing it forward now. But definitely we can bring back some more options for that building specifically, and some more information on the FCSS building. And in the meantime, there'll be some more ideas and options for the building. I agree. The shop over on Greg Street, that building has to go sooner than later. That's something that we can move on quickly if that's committee's desire.
Councillor Stindy.
So the current food bank, if they were to move over to the FCSS building, do we not provide that old location to our food bank in kind?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're currently not receiving any revenue off of it at all. So to open that up, put some tables and chairs in there, and perhaps utilize that for some of our youth programming as a meeting space would not be out of the question. And it's maybe something we could consider, because as far as I'm aware, that space is relatively the same size as the space that, for example, our Girl Guides were using at the old United Church, because I've been in both spaces and they are approximately the same size.
Also the current leaseholders are looking for more space as well, so that's entered in previous conversation. So we have to look at all those factors.
Councillor Pell.
Thanks. Now that we've talked around to me, quite a few of my questions have already been answered, but I just wanted to put in my 2 cents on the facilities, because it seems like that's what you're asking us for here. So in regards to the parks storage building, I would say if we could put it out there, if someone wanted to come take it away for a very nominal fee, if they wanted to come dismantle it and remove it, I say why not. I'm talking about the structure next to the home park. In regards to the SCSS building, I wholly agree that it should be offered to the food bank first, so that they have a chance to ensure that it will work for them. And then in regards to the parks and facilities shop, we would need to see what the difference is in costs for if someone wanted to come, if we put an RFP for someone to come and pay for the building to take it away, and see what they would offer us versus what it would take to, it's going to be quite a bit of rentals to that building to remove the overhead doors and make it energy efficient, plus the cost of getting it tested to see how structurally sound it is and everything. So I think for that building specifically, we would need to see price comparisons on both before we can decide.
Councillor Spot.
So I agree with Councillor Stenny with the food bank. I have volunteered in there as well, and I do agree they're out of space and they do need something a lot bigger. And their delegation with the programs that they would love to bring in would really suit our community very well. It's great that FCSS will become available, but also for the youth programming in our community, it would be great to have a place for youth to go and hang out, play pool, do some activities together. If they had this shop, they could paint the walls and make it their own. You know, it wouldn't have to be just for certain groups. It can be for all youth in our community. So to incorporate something with that, maybe with our youth programmer or something, maybe she has some great ideas that she could turn a rundown building into something fun and fabulous that the kids can put something into. That's just my thoughts.
So, Councilor Swap, were you talking about the existing food bank building or the?
No, the parks shop.
Any other thoughts? I have to agree with the line of where things are going. The storage building, probably best for scrap. See what we can salvage out of it. The other two, there's definitely options that we should explore. You know, there's lots of youth, like Councillor Swamp said, that need a place to hang their hat, and we don't have any space for them. I know U-Turn and Lacombe is asked for space somewhere. So there's options, and then the food bank does need more space, so we've got other options. So with that, I need a motion. I saw Councillor Hoover first.
I'll move the recommendation of the Standing Committee of Council accept this request as information.
Mayor Poole?
So accepting it for information. We do like to have with direction to investigate the questions that came forward, or would that be assumed?
That's just.
Thank you.
Any other debate on the motion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We have no action correspondence. Information 8.1 GTF allocation letter 2020. Any questions on that? Motion to accept his information then. Councillor Swap.
I'll move to accept the GTF allocation letter as information.
All those in favor? Carried unanimously. No roundtable, no adoption of minutes, motion, anything good business for the good of council? Not seeing any. We do have a confidential edit. Do you want a 5-minute recess, or do we move here to council? Councilor Powell.
I'll move for a 5-minute recess, that way everyone can get on.
Right. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Everyone out there watching, have a good night.